passion for what you're doing. This rings true because it's so hard that if you don't, any rational person would give up. It's really hard, and you have to do it over a sustained period of time. So if you don't love it, and if you're not having fun doing it, you're gonna give up.
Welcome to another episode of Jon's Untitled Podcast, a partner of MoshPitNation.com. This week's guest, it's a good one. It was a rescheduled one because I fucked up and lost the file the first time. It is none other than Mr. J. Gordon of Orgy. And just in, Daniel Terry with some breaking news.
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, I was excited to sit there and I was excited to hear you, talk to Jay Gordon, and it was a great 9 minutes of you guys exchanging formalities. And he's like, "No, I love you, Jon. No, I love you, Jay. No, I love you, Jon." And it was great. I loved all of it. But only 9 minutes, man. So yeah, I felt so bad too because I texted you and I didn't want to know what the answer was because I was like, how long is this Jay Gordon interview? Because, you did the one with Incubus, and that was only like 15 minutes. So, I was like, it's possible, but it sounds like you had a pretty good conversation. So, I'm not sure what happened there. And then, unfortunately. But, it was fortuitous to me because now I got to talk to Jay Gordon as well. So,
yeah,
that was a lot of fun for sure.
You got a shot at tequila for the old episode that didn't happen. So, R.I.P. to that episode.
Yeah. God rest your merry soul.
Ooh. Good. And but yeah, I'm really appreciative that Jay decided to do it. I remember after Dan sent me that text, I texted Jay and I was like, dude, I'm so sorry, but like I lost like all of the conversation. Something happened to the file. Can we redo it again if you are interested in doing it again? And he couldn't have been nicer. He was like, yeah, sure, just let me know and we'll do it again, no problem. And dude's busy. He's gearing up for a tour. Got tour rehearsals, as you'll hear in the conversation. He was literally on his way to pick up his daughter, or his kids in general, and in daddy mode and so forth. But still gave us an hour, and it was one of those things where he could have just been like, "No, man, you had one shot. I gave you like an hour and a half, and you kind of fucked that up." And no,
right? No, it was really cool. But he's such a chill dude, and just appreciative and cool. Like, I don't know, man, he was just smooth as ice, and I love that. And I totally understand dad mode, so I'm surprised he, took the time, despite all that. Because, honestly, Jon, if you'd called me when I was on my way to pick a kid up, and you're like, "No, we got to get this interview done right now," I'd have been like, "I'm sorry, dude, it's not going to work." So I understand, I'm blown away by that he gave us an hour and answered all of our questions, even whenever I asked him if he was ever going to put out a death metal record, just some of the stupid questions that I had, but no, he was cool about it, and, got a few chuckles out of him. So
I felt like I was like, like a kid in high school, or like a freshman in high school, like where I was like, okay, Dan, like this guy's really cool. Like, he's really easy to talk to, and, just like chalking him up. And then I was like, and then when we got off the phone with him, like I was like, see, I told you he was cool and easy to talk to. And it sounds really childish to sit there and be like, oh, he's so easy to talk to. But I think, Dan can attest, and I think anyone who does podcasts or interviews people sometimes, that's not always the case.
No, it's definitely, you hear the phrase, "Don't meet your heroes" a lot. And, I've definitely experienced that. Me and Jon have both experienced that with the same person on different podcasts. So,
that person wasn't my hero, but yeah.
Right. He was for me though, so it was pretty disappointing overall. But it definitely, I've had situations like that where you realize that the person that you're talking to, because my favorite thing about doing these interviews is getting to know the person behind the persona. Yeah. And there's some people that just can't turn off that persona. And it's scary. It's kind of a gamble going in because you're like, am I getting Jay Gordon or am I getting Jay Gordon of Orgy? And they should be one and the same. But what we got what we got was the dude, and that's what was the most important part to me.
No, I'm really looking forward to catching them in Detroit, hopefully on the Bring Your Army tour. They're doing a date here in Michigan, and it's right around my birthday, so I know Jay has graciously extended an invite for me and my wife to go and hang out with them and see the show. And it's on a Friday.
Very cool.
Maybe it's on a Saturday even. I don't remember, but I know it's on a day that I don't have to go to work the next day, which, as a grown adult, I very much am appreciative of. And might be more inclined to take Jay on his offer. And it's in light of all that, it was one of those things like I'm very much looking forward to if everything pans out. Just getting to hang out with him and talking to him, because I feel like, especially after now talking to the guy for like 2 hours basically, and a little bit before and after the actual conversation, that it's like I feel like there's a little bit of a rapport there that makes it a little easier to be like, okay, like we're just two dudes hanging out, like I like what you do, but like I don't know. It's still the weird thing for me about doing this podcast and talking to some people and some of the relationships that have formed as a result of, because it just you can't help but still be a fan and still be like, man, like the cliche saying, blank your old me would be stoked right now. And it's like, yeah, 1998, 1999 me is probably would be like, holy shit. Like how first of all, how the hell did you even get a hold of him? Because technology didn't exist. But secondly, it's like, that's just fucking crazy. Like someone that you always, thought was cool and wanted to talk to, and now here you are and you're getting to.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely cool. It's hard to keep the inner fanboy under control sometimes. Especially for me, a lot of the times, we'll talk to people and I'm just like so weirded out that like, cause I've heard this person's voice so much in the past, it's kind of weird, even some podcasters that I've talked to or met afterwards, I'm like, holy crap, I've listened to hundreds of hours of your voice.
I know
at this
really
point. It's weird talking to him.
It is weird when you get to talk to Joshua Toomey of the Talk to Me podcast, ex Primer 55.
Right. Yeah. Man, yeah. But, it's more, that's not who I was talking about, actually.
Lawrence.
It's still, no, getting colder. Getting colder. No, anyway, no, but what was crazy about it was that, like I had no idea what to expect going into this interview, because I hadn't kept up on Orgy like you had, and kind of, I always thought that they were a really cool band, but like as we discussed in the interview, a lot of the times you miss those press releases or you miss those announcements and stuff. So like a lot of people, their reaction is like, oh wow, I didn't even know that Orgy was a band still, or that they were doing anything. So it's like, no, they are very much alive, and Jay Gordon's about to tell you all about it,
Well,
and that was
the
cool.
thing too that was kind of interesting is like, I was like, yo, check out the last record they put out, and then you were like, wow, this has got really good hooks and good songwriting, and I was like, yeah, my favorite song off of that record and maybe of Orgy's catalog is Toxic, and it's a song that's only 3 or 4 years old, but like off the last record. And when you have like 20 some odd years with a record, it's easy for one of those songs to be your go-to favorites, but I think it speaks to the fact that Jay, as a musician, has evolved and been able to stay current and just write good songs. And if a lot of people haven't found the music, that's unfortunate, but I think that's the beautiful thing about music is sometimes, like in your case, they were on your radar, then they kind of fell off, and now you're aware of the music that's out and able to enjoy it. And that's kind of the beauty of like having Spotify or Apple Music and doing some of these things, is you get to learn about the music that you missed out on that is really good.
Right. Yeah, for sure. And now it's like I've got some Orgy releases to listen to that I didn't know exist, so it's like having new music already, you know?
Yeah. Well, speaking of new music and looking forward to things, let's get into our conversation with Jay Gordon of Orgy.
Hey, how's it going, man?
Hey, what's up, man?
How's it going?
It's going good. I like the ambience music you got going.
Oh, yeah. Just had the radio on, just came to pick up my my kid up here. Yeah, so I guess I missed a couple of your calls.
No, you just missed one. That's fine. I think I had. I think the funny thing that freaked me out too is when I called the last time, because we just did a conversation with Chuck Billy from Testament, so I think I accidentally had him on the line too. So I was like, "Oh shit, I need to hurry up."
I know Chuck pretty well.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, I've known Chuck for years.
That'd have been interesting. Yeah, we got to talk to him about his new line of weed pens and shit.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's killing it at that business, isn't he?
It seems like, actually. So I have the pleasure of talking with Jay Gordon once again. Sadly, the last conversation got eaten up by the virus gods of the Mac. Thanks again for coming on and deciding to do this again with me.
Yeah, no worries, man. No worries.
So wanted to start off, Army to Your Party. It's been doing really well as your lead-off single for your new album, #newmusic.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's doing good.
When exactly is the new album coming out? I still don't think I've seen a release date for the new album, #newmusic.
That's because currently there isn't one. Like we've kind of revamped a bunch of stuff and decided to go some different directions. It's definitely heavier. There's a lot of really good songs on it, and we're just trying to make it all kind of it was so like scattered out, all over the place since it had been recorded in so many different eras, so we kind of just streamlined some things and made it, it's definitely better. And I want to make sure all the songs are there, no matter what style it's going to be, because, there's no such thing as a lane for us. So.
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that over the band's discography. Do you think, though, Army to Your Party is indicative of where the album is kind of going with the changes that have been made recently?
I mean, yeah, no, like it's tough to say because that's kind of like that's the first single, but it's probably one of the older ones, as far as that goes. The newer stuff is different, but there's moments where it touches on that, so yeah, there's the bits and pieces,
Yeah. I'm really interested, though. Your new tour, Bring Your Army tour, starts August 17th.
So say that one more time. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I was going to say your new tour, Bring Your Army tour, starts on August 17th. What can fans expect from the set, with there being such a long history with the band?
We're definitely playing some new music, from no pun intended, but we're definitely playing some new songs from the record and stuff like that on the on the tour. So you'll definitely get to see some new music, stuff like that. So and some new members actually. So
yeah, I'm very much looking forward to seeing this tour. I haven't seen you guys. Wow. I think since around 98, 99. So it's been a long time since I've seen you guys.
Yeah.
So I'm very much looking forward to actually getting to hear stuff off of like your last record, Toxic. I think last time when we had the conversation, I was really surprised at how well that record was, considering you guys constantly have evolved from Candyass to Vapor Transmissions to everything along the journey. Are you kind of surprised at how well or how the album seemingly was kind of overlooked? Is that kind of disparaging when you put so much into a record and it just kind of seems to not have it, the reception maybe you wanted?
Well, I mean, I'm pretty stoked overall. People have received the new songs pretty good, and it's still a surprise for some people, that didn't realize we were even back. So it's kind of hard to get the word out there a lot. It's harder these days, I feel, since things are just so spread out, but I think, I'm happy overall. I think, after this tour, we'll see a lot of good things happening. And, some of these new songs are, I feel like I've done better on this record than all the others, and so I think we might have some really good singles coming on this record, and I think that people will receive them pretty well, so overall I'm happy with the reception we're getting. So
Well, and something that you'd said too was that it's harder to get the word out, which is definitely true, especially like with what me and John do on podcasting and stuff. And it's kind of sad that we live in such a connected world that it has to be that way. But it's almost like people are just oversaturated with information to the point where you make an announcement or something and nobody really hears it.
Exactly. Like people. It's kind of like split ends. You know what I mean? Like people just they follow a channel and then all of a sudden it's boom, they're off to the left, and you're going to the right, and so it's kind of hard to corral everyone and get them to get on the same page. So, but that's just the way it is. So you just got to deal with it accordingly.
Yeah, I kind of going back and looking at Candyass, the record. It's something that I've always noticed. Being a fan of rock music and so forth, is there's a long-standing trope of rock bands covering popular songs. Van Halen did it with You Really Got Me and so forth, and you guys came out first with Blue Monday, and I kind of had wondered with Bad Wolves having success with the cover of the Cranberries hit Zombie, was that something that you guys went into knowing that from a label perspective, or maybe a label was like, hey, if you guys were to do a cover song, it might lead to some kind of help push some people into getting into your band because it's a song that's people know, or how did the cover for Blue Monday come about?
No, it just there was a couple of them that we were messing around with at the time, and it was going to be that song Something Going On, which is like the chick from ABBA. Whatever her name is, I forget her name, but that one. So we were gonna cover that song. We started playing around with that, and then once we got up to start making the record, I'd been listening to a lot of 80s songs, just because I wanted to cover something from that era, and so Blue Monday came about and decided to do that song. It had nothing to do with labels or anything, and we weren't even sure how they were going to receive it actually. So then they loved it and it worked out. So heard it on K-Rock last night, so we did something right on that one.
Was there ever a thought to maybe do another cover for the Vapor Transmission sessions at all?
No, I mean people have always said oh, you should do this song, you should do that song, and prior to Prince dying, I did with a buddy of mine. I did a version of what was that song? Doves. When Doves Cry.
Yeah.
I did a version. Yeah, I did a version of that with him just for fun, and it was just silly. We were just drunk one night, and we decided to do that. And but no, I'm good on the covers after that one.
Well, it's like if you want to go see a cover band, there's probably a bar within a 20-minute radius, and if the goal is to get your own original vision out there, I think people are sometimes a little too quick to jump on, oh, well, they did this cover song, and that's the only song, it's very, if you look at a band like Alien Ant Farm, that kind of gotten almost a little too well known for a cover song.
Right.
So.
Right. Yeah, and you can't knock them as musicians or anything for doing that. I mean, they're really good musicians, and I mean, just knowing those guys personally, and but it sucks when that happens. Luckily for us, we had a couple of other big songs, so it worked out all right.
Yeah, for sure, and that's to go back to the Alien Ant Farm thing. I loved their debut record, and it used to always just piss me off because I'm like, dude, check out this song, this song, this song, and this song, and they'd be like, oh, well, you got that Smooth Criminal covered. I'm like, I mean, yeah, it's on there, but
yeah. They never really thought that that was going to be the end game. You know what I mean? And so that sucks when that kind of stuff happens, but you never know how it's going to go in this business,
Something that you had said previously in our last chat that I thought was just a really interesting story was, and I'm going to try to ask you to retell it without giving it away, but just how you did the scratch track on a Korn song that they were covering, a song that became kind of popular for them. Could you retell that for us, please?
Right. Well, I listen to a lot of like hip hop stuff. I work on a lot of those kind of records, like beats, whatever. Like I do a lot of that stuff, and so I've always been into it. Korn had asked me to come up to the Malibu Ranch and or Indigo Ranch, actually. Sorry, but they asked me to come up there and do Chino's part for the Wicked song that they did with Chino, and so I had to get up there so the band could get through the song real quick, and then he was flying in, I guess, the next day to do his part. So I just did like the scratch track for it, just kind of ran through it with the band, and I still say something at the beginning of the song that Ross Robinson decided to keep on there, which is kind of funny. And I was doing like some silly Christopher Walken impression, and then they kept that on there.
Were you the one that said we got cool running mixes in the headphones? Is that you?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah. It's funny.
That is funny because I sometimes, obviously, when we have to do podcasts and listening to headphone and stuff, I'll say that just as a joke, like we got running mixes in the headphones.
Yeah,
that's so funny. I didn't know that was you.
Yep. Yeah.
What?
Funny because we were supposed to play this. We're still playing the same festival, but I've been talking to Jonathan about coming up and doing Revival with us since we were playing the same festival and all. But he's playing like a couple of days before us or something like that. He's playing like Friday or Saturday, and we're playing Sunday. So that kind of like washed that one out. But yeah, it's those guys have always kind of been around, and they paved the way for us, certainly, like Jonathan, and in particular, he got me started in this whole game, so always grateful to JD for everything he's done.
It was kind of interesting. Dan was making a comment earlier about the Queen of the Dam soundtrack, because we were just kind of talking about how soundtracks used to be a really viable option for bands and people to get their music out. And I recently had heard that Jonathan was finally performing some of the songs off of the Queen of the Damned soundtrack. So, what was it like, being invited to be a part of that soundtrack? Because, I mean, that's honestly, I think outside of maybe the Dracula 2000 soundtrack, that's one of the last big soundtracks that featured a lot of metal bands on it.
Yeah, it was cool. It was really cool. Like I said, like JD's always been very pivotal in my career, and that was like, like he's always been there to, just, give me like a boost for some reason, like, just kind of worked out timing wise, and it was a political thing. The reason why he wasn't allowed to. He wrote all those songs that everyone sang on, and he wasn't allowed to perform them on the record. He was allowed to do them on the movie, but not yet. Yeah, exactly, but not on the soundtrack. So, he gave me the first choice, and I was like, I definitely want to do this song, having no idea that it was going to be the song in the movie. But it ended up working out pretty good, and it was cool, very cool.
Yeah, that's definitely one of the best, like John was saying, one of the best soundtracks, just in that, that used to be a really a big vehicle for a lot of bands. And so, yeah, that was actually the question I was going to ask. Obviously, I guess you answered it already, that John had done all of the, he had written all the songs, and then he just had basically his friends come in and sing all of them. And,
correct, yeah.
But that was definitely one of the better parts of the soundtrack, was getting to hear just kind of that diversity. But going back to the whole Blue Monday thing, which I'm not going to focus on that, but it was kind of the same thing, for me, like I had said about the Alien Ant Farm, is I loved Candyass as an album, and like the cover song was cool, but did you ever really hit any flack or kickback from people where they're just so focused on that one song versus the rest of the stuff that you guys had on display, because you had an original sound, obviously, but was it frustrating, I guess, for you to kind of get that kind of reception?
Sometimes, more or less, like big Joy Division fans, and like, some of those people were just like, how could you do that? That song is like so sacred. And I'm like, I don't even get where you're coming from. But like, I'm sure that those guys were pretty, New Order were pretty happy because they all got like new houses and stuff like that from it. So I was like, okay, whatever. Yeah, you just like, you gotta just blow that stuff off, So I don't really care one way or the other. Personally, like, if I never had to play it again, I'd be stoked just because I'm so sick of it. But, it's just one of those songs, I jump out in the crowd and let the crowd sing it now. And it's cool that way,
Yeah, for sure.
Actually, kind of speaking to that, I don't think a lot of bands think about some of the songs they might have to play 20 years down the line. Is there something off of Candyass that, like, maybe you haven't played in a while that you really enjoyed that you would kind of like to dust off and maybe get it back into the rotation?
Well, every once in a while we play Pantomime, which is kind of cool. People love that one, and that's cool. And Gender, we used to play that a little bit. Maybe that one, we could revamp or something. Just kind of. What I'd really ultimately like to do is do like some kind of medley where we just kind of like roll through like 5 or 6 of them in a few minutes, and I think that's very likely to happen in the near future. So that could happen.
So we as Orgy fans shouldn't hold our breath to a 20-year anniversary show at some point at the tail end of the year.
That I don't exactly know. The possibility, you mean with the original lineup or something like that?
I don't know.
Original
lineup or not. I mean, just as a whole, like, the tough thing is sometimes as a fan of bands, a lot of music and certain albums and so forth, there becomes this fine line of, a lot of bands will do an anniversary tour or a couple of shows or whatever. And as a fan, it's always great to see because, that's an album that everybody either came to love or is seminal or whatever moniker you want to put on it. But then, it kind of becomes this thing, too, where in some instances it's a band kind of doing a cash grab kind of thing, it seems, because there's obviously good money to see a band perform an album from, like, that everyone loves. But I definitely don't.
Yeah.
I don't know how it is from your perspective, where it's like, I'm trying to move forward, so trying to look at something from 20 years ago and re-perform something I already did and supported for 2-3 years. I'm not about that, so it's kind of hard to ask that.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to any of the aforementioned. It's more like getting people on the same page, I think, or whatever, or but I'm not opposed to playing some or something like that. We talked about it. I think with getting new members acclimated, we had to get them up to par on what we need to play usually, which is more like newer stuff and things like that. So I think maybe part way through this tour, if we can get everybody learning some of the other songs, then maybe we could play some more of that, since it is that 20th anniversary thing. But it's definitely been mentioned and brought up a few times, and it's not out of the realm of possibility. And as far as doing anything with the old members or anything, like I'm not close to any ideas.
Yeah, I mean, it's always kind of tough too when there's the whole, is it worth revisiting a record that potentially a band toured a shitload on in the past, but then
Right.
If the band's not all intact, then that adds another layer of difficulty to it. But sometimes
Yeah,
like,
you know what I mean.
yeah, I was gonna say, just in light of like Vinnie Paul passing away, and not being able to, and I'm not saying a Pantera reunion ever would have happened with the members that were around, but it's like, it's one of those where sometimes when you see shit like that, all you see is a lot of people going like, well, now it never can happen because another death happened or whatever, that it just makes me wonder if, you as the people in the band just kind of like go to each other and be like, whatever issues there may have been, let's squash the shit and just be like, let's just fucking get in a room again and just have fun creating the music that we did that touched so many people.
Right. Yeah. No. I think everybody's comfortable with what they're doing now. I mean, I think everybody's doing pretty well. With new projects, and I don't know. I think that I produce a lot of records and things like that. I got some new bands coming out pretty soon that are really, really good. I'm just kind of focusing on that kind of stuff. But, like I said, it's not that I wouldn't do it, and it's, as far as there being like, a desire for people, like if the need was there, like I'm sure that, there hasn't been so much talk about it where it's just like you kind of have to do it, or either make the decision to do it or not do it. I don't think that's just not really come up that much. You know what I mean? So,
right.
But it's it's not beyond the realm of possibility, like I said.
Well, and speaking to new music, one thing I've noticed about Orgy throughout the years has just been kind of, there's always, we never get the same album 2 times in a row, and
right.
there seems to just be so much focus on introducing new styles. Was there ever a style of music or a direction that you wanted to go into but it just didn't come to fruition, or was there anything you wanted to do that just for whatever reason you weren't able to?
Not really. Definitely some things that maybe we didn't get to touch enough on, but I think we've pretty much covered the gamut as far as introducing, new styles, and especially with since it's always been like kind of a, electronic meets rock kind of a situation. I think that, like you can never get, too much of the EDM thing in there because it changes so much, you know what I mean? So, we didn't just go like crazy dubstep meets rock, or anything like that. Even dubstep is split off into so many different, subgenres of that, and bass music and whatnot. I think it's just learning it all. Like I like to at least know what I'm doing. When I do incorporate that kind of music, like I don't just like throw like a dubstep sample in there and just be like, there you go. But I definitely. I definitely like to know how to make it, as I'm doing it. And there's just so much of that, so many like subgenres going on that like learning how to do all that is just like kind of impossible,
Right.
So, but that's what these young guys do, man. They're good at it, and so that's their world. I just like to know how to do a little bit of it, so in case I want to incorporate some of it into new songs.
Right.
But,
what you're telling me is there's not an Orgy death metal album on its way anytime soon.
I love some death metal. Don't get me wrong. Like I think on this record, we kind of address a lot. We kind of address an industrial thing that hasn't happened. Really happened as much as it should have. So in a sense, when you say that, it was kind of funny. The first thing that did come into my mind, although I went on this other tangent, people used to like throw us in with this industrial thing, and really, we never really did much of that, And so I think now you're going to hear a lot more of those elements, like through a few songs, you know what I mean? So I'm pretty stoked about that, actually. And it's like, it feels good because nobody's really doing that. So there you go. I just threw that one at you. So we'll
Perfect.
see how many bands start doing industrial music again. Sounds fun.
Right.
Yeah.
Kind of speaking to bands doing older things and kind of repurposing them, I guess. It's always been interesting.
Kind of has to be done.
No, for sure. And I mean, what's the old saying? Every 20 years, something old is new again. I mean, we're starting to see it now. The
Yeah.
90s are coming back real hard, so I figure the new metal sound is on its way back because, I mean, that's almost the route we're going. Crystal clear Pepsi and now new metal.
Yeah.
So the interesting thing to me is, like, for a while, new metal was a kind of a dirty word, and anyone associated with the scene was kind of bastardized as a result of having that tag put on them. But it almost seems like now we're kind of coming out of that to where it's cool again, and you're starting to see.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. Like, you know, I mean, as soon as somebody tagged that new metal thing, I think everybody that played that particular style of music was like, what? That's what this is called? Oh, like, you know, and it was kind of like, you know, so, and then it just became, it's kind of like, you know, the whole grunge thing, you know, it's like, what is that? You know what I mean? And so anything that came from Seattle, that was the last thing I wanted to hear. There was like two bands that did that really well, and Alice in Chains being one of them. And I was a big fan of that singer and stuff like that, and that band in general. But you know, I mean, that was, you know, it's definitely got its its footprint, you know, for that grunge thing or whatever you want to call it. And then it's like, you know, this new metal thing. It's kind of like, you know, the Korn thing, but like you'd be surprised at how many bands right now. Like I'm producing a band right now that definitely has some of those moments, and they're sick as hell at it. And I'm kind of glad that some of that is coming back. You know, that wasn't my decision to do the band. You know, like I kind of made an arrangement with these guys to produce some vocals. You know, and they're friends of mine. And then when I heard the music, I was like, oh wow, this stuff is crazy. You know, it's like heavy, it's hard. You know, it's like complicated, but it's like, you know, it has that Korn vibe and kind of that Deftones vibe, and it's just sick, you know. So you know, when the time comes, I'm sure that we'll all be talking about that. But there's a lot of bands out there that are doing that new metal thing, if that's what it's called.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. It just kind of seems to be this resurgence, and it's kind of fucked up for me because that was one of the first genre, or whatever the fuck you want to call it. That was one of the first things that was kind of my generation's like stamp on music, and so it's weird to see it come back like 20 years later and be like, you damn kids, you don't know. So it was more of a thing like, have you noticed that like people may have perceived you one way for a long time because of the bad association with new metal, but now it's almost like this thing like, oh, you were in a new metal, oh you were in Orgy, oh wow, you know, and kind of like people want to fuck with you again, like where it's almost like now you're on again because of, you know, lasting the shitstorm of trends changing, and now you have something to offer people who are trying to sound like you already did and have for 20 plus years.
So yeah, it's cool. I mean, you know, I'm stoked about it actually, because then you don't, you know, it feels like, you know, it's cool to let you know that it's cool that people are you know, making what you did before relevant again, you know, especially for the bands that did it, you know, like us being one of the. So, you know, it's all good. You know, I'm stoked on it.
Yeah, I think people just want music that, you know, heavy music that has feeling in it again, and, you know, actually has, you know, memorability, because, you know, when hardcore got popular and you know, metal and death metal, like we said before, you know, like that stuff's all cool, it's all heavy or whatever, but I think for for people collectively, you know, you kind of want something that you can take something away from and remember, and, you know, actually have like earworm songs that you're gonna be able to sing on your own in the car, you know, and that sort of thing. And just seeing people bring heavy music back to that level is a lot more indicative of what people actually want out of their music, whether it's, you know, 20 years ago or it's today.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think bands like Bring Me the Horizon are really important to music because, you know, they were like super like just hardcore, like, you know, heavy as hell, you know, doing like, you know, they kind of like brought it full circle. They're almost like the new like Linkin Park, so to speak, you know. Totally. Their songs are, you know, they're writing really good songs, you know, whereas before they were just metalcore, and you know, it was just like heavy stuff, which I love, you know, don't get me wrong, I love all that metalcore stuff, you know, a lot of those kind of bands. But yeah, there's a lot of those bands that kind of you know, grew out of that phase, and they're more into the songs and melodies and structures and stuff like that. So it's cool to see that happen.
You know, you talk quite a bit during our conversation about the production side of things and working with bands and just kind of taking the musical landscape in. You know, is that something you enjoy more potentially than kind of working on Orgy itself? Is just kind of being in the
No,
creative?
I mean,
Go ahead.
you know, I love it all equally. You know, like I mean, I love doing Orgy, and my favorite thing is playing live. You know, that's always it's always like a good release. You know what I mean? Like that's I have a lot of energy, and I always have, and it's always good to get on stage and let that let all that energy out. You know, so that's cool. And I'll keep doing that until I don't feel like that anymore. But the production thing is something that I've always been into pre-Orgy, and along the way. So
What's something
it's all the same.
what's something production wise that you would like to do, like a dream production type gig for you?
There's a lot of things that I like to work on, and I'm kind of doing that. Like I said, I do everything from every once in a while I'm doing like everything from like a rap project to some really heavy bands, or some really kind of up and comers, some new stuff. So there's no real dream jobs that I want to do, because I think I've covered a lot of that.
Mm-hmm.
So but it's all good. I just like anything new, I'm always down to do it.
Yeah, so I kind of wanted to ask this just in light of the world we live in, where people are so quick to kind of, I don't even know if you call it a handout anymore, but something that was interesting to me from our last chat, it was more so your answer to this question. But when you guys were launched the crowdfunding or crowdsourcing, I'm still not sure what you call it technically, but when you launched that and it didn't succeed, and basically all the music sites ended up running all the stories about it just to basically mock you guys for not, even though you weren't the first band to not reach your goal, they just made it, they kind of used you as like the scapegoat of being like, oh, look at this band that didn't make their Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And the thing to me,
yeah,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just going to say, it was one of those things to me that, in looking at that, it was really fucking weird, because it's like, there were several other bands that didn't hit their goals in that same time period, but they just seemed to put you on the stake, you and I think Crazy Town, and almost like, look at these guys, who do they think they are? And so, you kind of had talked in our previous conversation sort of about just, and I'll let you say that, I'll let you speak for yourself, but, that was something you weren't really interested in, but more so to the fact that it was a position you were put into not of your own choosing, and then kind of talking about the oversaturation potentially of just that whole gimmick at the time.
Yeah. It was something that came up. It was some legal people. It said you really need to do this, and then. And I was like, I just really didn't feel like that. Yes, it's not me to even do stuff like that. But I went ahead and did it just because that was just an option. You know what I mean? So obviously we made the record, and we funded it ourselves and stuff like that. So it sucks that people like made us the scapegoat on that one, but. You gotta make somebody that I guess people just had to bitch about something. So, they used us for that. I was like, whatever, it's funny. Some of the things were really funny actually. So, people have the right to, everybody's so PC about everything now. So it's like, I just kind of just let it go. But, it was really never even my idea. I just kind of went along with the program on that one. And in fact, I thought it was a bad idea, but we just did it anyway. And, there you go.
There must not have been any actual news that day.
That's, the what now?
I said there must not have been any actual news that day.
Yeah, exactly.
With,
nothing else going on, So it's it's really worked out, us doing it ourselves, and I always have an outlet, you know what I'm saying? So I never needed that as an outlet to fund records. It was just it was one of those things where someone thought it was a great idea to do that, and I really didn't, and but it didn't really work out, and it worked out to a certain extent, you know what I'm saying? And I think that what we were like asking for was like a lot, and but that's what it takes to make a good record, do some touring and stuff like that. We've always just been able to do it ourselves, and so we just kind of went with that route instead, and some things work, some things don't.
Well, with the state of the industry right now, I mean, I've been saying for years that the corporate music industry is kind of dying a slow, painful death, and with that being the case, bands seem to have to employ a lot of different tactics to promote themselves that they didn't used to have to use. And I guess I just wonder, for somebody that's been in the game as long as you have, like how frustrating is that you form a plan and then you do, you execute that plan, but almost by the time it's executed, things have changed now to where it's like, well, you can't use this website anymore, or now you have to set up a Facebook instead of a MySpace, or like that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's so fucking ridiculous. It's not even funny. You know what I mean? It's like, it's social media in general is like, I'm not like PD post. I don't post like every 5 seconds. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just don't do that. And I mean, I get the, I get the viability and all that of it, but it's just not my thing, But, kids are really stoked on it. Like, like the new drummer we got, like he's all over that shit, and that's cool. It's cool. It doesn't hurt. You know what I mean? So, but, it's like, I watch everything that's going on and, I understand it all. I know how to do it all. It's just that, I don't know. People just want to know what you eat for breakfast and shit like that. It's like, fuck off. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like cereal, I don't know, bacon and eggs, like whatever the fuck,
That's why you just make it something weird. Just start posting a bunch of random shit,
Yeah, just like I had like pate for breakfast, and like I ate some weird like salmon and peanut butter for lunch, and whatever,
This is Jay Gordon's rock star lunch. Yeah, like it's yeah.
Yeah, right. Pilaf, but
yeah. I think one of the more fun follows on Instagram actually is John Cena, because he just posts the most random shit with no explanation. It typically has nothing to do with wrestling or himself, and you're just like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah, I've seen some of that stuff, and that's cool actually. It's like that's like a different twist on than what everybody else is doing. Like, oh, I did this and my Insta this and my whatever this. It's like. It's silly. It's all silly. But, people are into it. So, I don't knock it, I don't knock what anybody's hustle or anybody's get down is, you know what I mean? I either fuck with it or I don't,
Right. We're kind of going to wrap this up just because I'll let you get back to your time with your kids. But, the new tour starts August 17th in Salt Lake City, ends on September 29th in San Diego, California, and hitting pretty much every major city in the U.S., I'm trying to remember who else was going out with you.
Branded Jewels and Crowned and Motograder, and we were potentially going to do some shows with Three Teeth, but they're making a record and it just didn't work out timing wise, or and stuff like that. So we just we're taking those guys with us.
Awesome. And where can everyone find the band? I don't think you have many socials, if any, that I could see.
I do. It's JG Music as far as the Insta and all that other stuff goes. But the Facebook page, Orgy Music Official, and orgymusic.com, and there'll be updates to all that stuff as the tour is going, and we're going to be posting a lot of stuff. We have somebody coming out with us to film every show, like a bunch of different camera angles. So at the end, we're going to release some, probably. Some really good footage. So it's cool. Yeah, and we'll be doing like daily updates and all that kind of stuff. So, I'll be getting my Insta on a lot more during the tour. So
are you guys
we'll see how that goes.
Are you guys doing a VIP meet and greet or anything like that?
Yeah, absolutely. We're doing all that, and people can purchase VIP stuff through the Facebook pages and the website and all that stuff. So, but yeah, we'll be doing a lot of that. And looking forward to it. Looking forward to putting on some great shows. So.
And then lastly, what we always end these episodes to a song. So what would you like us to play it out to, and maybe a little backstory?
As far as like an orgy song.
Can be whatever. If you've been jamming a song lately, could be a Wiggle song that maybe you and your daughter have been jamming.
Oh, those fucking songs drive me crazy. But no, like I mean, if you guys want to play "Army to Your Party," that'd be a good one. And that was co-produced by a guy named Keaton Prescott, aka Sullivan King, who's like a big. He's like on the rise right now. He's like on that like Skrillex tip. You know what I mean? He's definitely. Like a force to be reckoned with as far as like a DJ, producer DJ goes. And he co-produced a song with us, and I'm proud of that fact. And Critchy Critch, the guy who does the rap section on it, he's doing really well too. And so yeah, just that one would be the track.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for taking the time again to do this conversation again. I'm looking forward to seeing you when you come out to Detroit.
Word, it'll be good to meet you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks a lot, man. Good talk.
All right, guys. Have a good one. All right.
You too.
So that was our conversation with Jay Gordon of Orgy, and I'm going to take a moment to celebrate this with a nice 20-year port. So smooth and so delicious, just like that conversation.
Very much was. I mean, it's kind of like the glass of water I'm drinking. But
I have the Jesus version over here where it got turned into wine.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, well, you've got the hookup then. But yeah, no, man, that conversation was fantastic, and one of my favorites so far that I've been able to do with you. I definitely love it when we can both get on and do the interviews. I know it's not always possible. You'll text me at 2:00 in the afternoon and be like, "Can we make this happen?" And I'm like, "No."
And I always feel bad because it's like sometimes that's how fast these things happen. It's like you get an email or you send an email in reply to something, and it's like, "We could do it tomorrow. Does this work for you?" And it's like, "I don't know. Hold on. Let me see if Dan can do it. Dan, can you do it? No. Okay. Can we reschedule it? No. Tomorrow's the only day. Fuck. Okay, I'm doing it by myself."
Right. Well, that's okay. I mean, in the future, we might even have episodes where I do the interview.
That'd be nice, and then I get to say things like, "Oh, Dan, I really enjoyed when you asked so-and-so about these things."
Right. You got a little personal when you asked him if he wanted to play strip poker over Skype. You never turned your co-host loose. It's a bad idea. But, but yeah, no, it's definitely something that we're looking at to do as well, just to make it more interesting. But that, I definitely enjoyed that one. I loved how he answered my stupid questions about death metal, and and again, it's like you never peg Jay Gordon for a guy that listens to metalcore, but apparently he does, and that was news to me.
I think being a producer, you have to have like an ear for everything, and a lot of times in watching a lot of documentaries and reading a lot of things, it's in somebody watching or reading a story about how somebody else did something, and it gives them the spark to try to do something different recording wise. And I think that's that, and like I said, I think Jay's ability to be into a wide array of genres, I think, has allowed the band to stay fresh and relevant in as much as they are. Because I mean, it's like where they started off, they always kind of have that sound, but like there's always kind of been like tinges of like 80s kind of goth music. There's little bits of industrial you go through. There's little bits of like punk music, and on the newer stuff, it's a little bit more emphasis on pop, and like even he was saying like K-pop music and stuff like that. So, and EDM and so forth. So I mean, it's like I think it only services Jay and Orgy as a whole for him to be as diverse as he is in his musical knowledge.
Yeah, I've never heard a band go from hard rock to pop like they do, like so seamlessly, and it works really well for the band. And having that great overall sound anyway, really, like, it's always an interesting experience, but like it's never so different that it's off-putting.
Right.
If that makes sense. If you like the way the band sounds, basically, you can go in all those different directions and be fine with it.
Yeah. And speaking of being fine with things, we're gonna kind of be mindful of your time. Dan's got a child on his arms. As you heard, Jay was picking up his kids. There's kids in the background. And we're going to get out of here since the episode was a little bit longer than normal. So if you would like to follow Orgy and Jay, you can find Orgy on Facebook at Orgy Music, on Instagram at Orgy Official, and Twitter as well. And you can follow Jay on Instagram under JG Music. And if you would like to follow our partners at Moshpit Nation, you can find them on moshpitnation.com. Facebook is Moshpit Nation West, capital M-I, and Twitter and Instagram are simply Moshpit Nation. Dan, where can everyone find you?
You can find me on Twitter at DiscussMetalDan. You can send me an email at danandjoeshow@gmail.com. And you can find my other podcast at www.discussmetal.com.
And you can follow The Bean Bastard, our sponsor, over at thebeanbastard.com. Pick you up some delicious coffees. Always great following them on various socials. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram at The Bean Bastard. And you can keep up with the podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at John's Untitled Podcast. Tweet at us at John's Untitled Pod. And email us at johnsuntitledpod@gmail.com. You can also find us on johnsuntitledpod.com. Let us know what you think there. And Dan's going to get into why rating, reviewing, and subscribing is important.
We love reviews here on John's Untitled Podcast, and the reason we like reviews is not only do they make us feel good, but they help us get recommended to other people. They help us get more popular, and it's a really great way that you can help us by subscribing and recommending the podcast to your friends, but also by giving us ratings and reviews. Your podcast platform will do that for you. It will actually recommend our podcast to your friends, and that's why we ask for this stuff. We do have a Patreon component as well, but if you don't have the money and you don't want to contribute money, totally understand that. But a really good free way to help us out, if you want to help us out, is just rate, review, subscribe, and send us an email every now and again.
And speaking of Patreon, you can find us on patreon.com/John's Untitled Podcast. Very simple. We have 4 tiers currently. At Tier 1, it's a $1 donation, gets you a shout-out on the end of an episode. Tier 2 is a $5 donation, where I will reach out to you ahead of time, let you know who we have coming on. And you can send me a question if you would like for the guest, and we will read it on the air during the interview and give you credit for it. Tier 3 is at $15. We will basically take the Tier 2 a step further, and if you can have yourself record your audio, or maybe even a video if you would like, but regardless, just I need the audio of you actually asking the question, and I will throw it into the interview, so you will literally be asking the question to the person and get an answer back. And plus the perks, from Tier 1 as well, of, getting a shout-out, obviously. And the big one at Tier 4, it's a $50 donation. You get to come on here and co-host an episode with Dan and I. You'll be a part of the intros and outros, and so on and so forth. And, we can kind of talk about whatever you may want to. And maybe, with enough notice, I can send you the episode and get your thoughts on on it as well. And, these are just kind of very basic tier levels. I kind of didn't really know what to do for a podcast as far as like what people would want to donate for. Like I've been saying, getting a new logo design, going to get that done and get it on shirts, so that'll be an option if that's something you would like to do to support the podcast. But any donation amount is greatly appreciated. At absolute worst, like Dan said, if you don't want to donate monetarily to the podcast, that's fine. Just please rate, review, subscribe. Every little bit helps the podcast grow, and we're just basically trying to grow in all ways. If you watch if you watch Sell It Like Sirhan or $1 Million Listing New York, Ryan Sirhan has a great saying: expanding always in all ways. And that is what we are trying to do here on the podcast: expand always in all ways. So help us grow, and it's all greatly appreciated. So without further ado, we're going to end this episode with a song, as we always do. And as you heard Jay pick, he wanted us to play the new song, Army to Your Party. And you can find Orgy on the road pretty soon. August 17th starts their tour in Salt Lake City, Utah, and it ends September 29th in San Diego, California. It is the Bring Your Army tour. And hopefully I'll be able to go see them out in Detroit, and maybe Dan might be able to catch a date out when if they're going his way. But go catch them if you can, and very much looking forward to seeing these guys. So we will talk to you next week. Thanks.